Most people don't keep resolutions, and frankly, the way people approach them usually isn't sophisticated enough in their thinking for them to be sustainable. Simply deciding that you should be eating less, working harder, or whatever, and then trying to force that new behaviour through until the force runs out, is already flawed and doomed before you even begin. So in this video, I'm going to help you identify where you are and where you want to go with regard to your mind, your body, your relationships, and your prosperity. Then I'm going to give you 4 skills, the primary life skills for each of those 4 key areas. And then I'm going to give you a short guide on how to choose sustainable resolutions. So as Chris Newton says, what you measure, you can manage. So let's start by measuring and assessing where you are in your life today in 4 key areas of life: your mind, body, relationships, and prosperity. So I'd like to invite you to get a pen and a piece of paper, and we're just going to jot down a few self-assessments for where you are. You can do this with text, typing if you wish to, but I recommend doing it with a pen and paper as writing crystallizes thought. So the first thing we're going to do is assess where you are today out of 10 for prosperity. So this is primarily going to be about money, but it also includes wider aspects of how prosperous you are in your life. So for example, if you don't have money, but somebody's inviting you onto their yacht every Saturday night, then that still reflects a certain degree of prosperity. If you have access to a golden beach every day, there's some prosperity there. So there are other things as well as money, but primarily it's going to be about financial situation. And this isn't about assessing how other people assess you or where they think you should be. This is your own assessment with how happy you are on a scale of 1 to 10 with your finances and your wider prosperity. So you can just jot that number down, then you've got your number out of 10. Secondly, we're going to do that for relationships. So this will primarily be whether you're in a love relationship, but we'll also include family relationships, relationships with friends, social relationships, and all those kind of things as well. So again, this is just what you think, what your assessment is on a score of 1 to 10, how happy you are with where you are now with regard to relationships. Okay, when we've done that, we're going to do a third one, which is for your body. So this is going to include health as well. So might include things like weight management if that's something that's important to you. Certainly is going to include health, might also include how happy you are with your levels of vitality and various other aspects of your physical body. This is your own assessment out of 10. And finally, we're going to do another score, assess yourself where you are right now for how happy you are with your life with regard to your mind. So that's going to be things like mental health. It's going to be things like confidence. It's also going to include how happy you feel you are, whether you're thinking positively and you're happy with that kind of side of things. So maybe you're not, so perhaps give yourself a lower score if you're not, higher score if you are. So that whole general area of the mind and mental health, a score out of 1 to 10. Once you've jotted that down, you'll realize that you've got 4 lots of scores out of 10. So essentially you have a score for your life out of 40 for how you're doing now. And what you measure, you can manage. So we now know where we are. And then we can move on to the next stage, which is assessing where you want to get to. So you've got your score for where you are now out of 10 for prosperity generally. And now I'd like to invite you to choose another score out of 10 for what level you'd like that prosperity to be at. And maybe it's different to the number that you're at the moment. And if it is, then we have a difference, a gap, a goal for where you want to get to over the coming year. And that's your assessment, something to focus on, target in on. Then you can do the same for your relationships. What level would you like your relationships to be at? Maybe that's different to where they currently are now. Give yourself a assessment for what level you'd like your body and your health to be at. Again, you're scoring this out of 10 for your own choice, not what other people think. And finally, what level would you like your mind, your happiness, your confidence, you're thinking, what level would you like that to be at? And perhaps that's also different to where you are now. And again, in which case, if it is, then you have a goal or something to aim for. So if you have a difference between your scores for your mind for where you are now and where you would like to be, what needs to change in order for that to happen? And it might be something that you have been avoiding facing up to, or you don't want to admit to, or deep down you know that you should be doing something in order for that to change. So it can help to face whatever that is, but also you don't want to judge yourself for not having done something or not having faced up to something, because there'll be a reason why. This is an area where people tend to get into problems, is they have judgments of where they should be and what they should be doing and try and force things through, and they don't look at, because they're judging themselves, they don't allow themselves to take a moment to understand what it is that's the reason why they're not doing the things that they know or they think they should be doing. There might be a very good reason for it. And if you judge yourself for that, you're never going to know that reason. So you need to relax that awareness so that you can be capable of being honest with yourself about what's really going on. Because there might be a perfectly good reason why you haven't actually gone ahead and done something that you quote unquote should be doing. So second question again for the body, what do you need to be doing in order to get from where you are to where you want to be, whatever your out of 10 score was for your body and your health, and the out of 10 score for where you'd like that to be? What do you have to do to get that done? What's not happening that needs to happen? Same question for your relationships. What do you need to do in order to proceed your relationships to where they need to be? And finally, with your prosperity, what has to happen there? What do you have to do, or what things might you be able to do that are going to help you move from where you are to where you want to be? So I said I'd share the 4 primary life skills for each of those 4 areas of mind, body, relationships, and prosperity. And the primary life skill for the mind is what I call holding presence. So that's your awareness to be able to respond to what's going on rather than react. Whenever you get into a constricted situation where you feel constricted, or your mind is perhaps entertaining negative thoughts, the difference between whether you react unconsciously in a way that doesn't serve you to that situation, or whether you respond consciously in a way that does serve you in how you deal with the situation, is the difference of awareness. So you can be in negative thinking, or you can be in a feeling of constriction. All it needs is one moment of awareness so you can recognize what's going on, and then you're holding presence to the situation, and then you can respond because you have that awareness that you've got caught in the moment. You can choose how you're going to respond to that rather than react and be at the mercy of negative thinking or the reaction of whatever judgmentalism you've picked up from other people that's driving you in a way of being, a way of behavior or acting that isn't serving you. And let's get a kissing consciousness binary table up there. You can see responding is the way that we operate when we're in a state of love consciousness, and reacting is the unconscious way that we are when we're operating from the state of fear consciousness. And as you can see there, love consciousness is the state of self-acceptance, and fear consciousness is the state of self-constriction, and also love consciousness is the state of genuine choice, whereas fear consciousness is the illusion of choice. It's the reaction. So you're not going to fulfill any success if you're operating under fear consciousness and reaction. And the primary life skill for the body and health is listening to the body. This is something, if you follow this channel regularly, you will have heard me talking about how I learned this from David Hurd. And there's a video on the channel of David. He's a trainer of elite athletes, founder of the National Rehabilitation Centre for the Paralysed, and he's explaining what he means by listening to the body. So you're feeling in, you're tuning into the signals, you're paying attention to the signals that the body is giving you. Kind of like a car mechanic would listen to a car engine and the various other parts of the car to get a sense of what's going on. People will always do this at a basic level. They'll roughly know when they're hungry or thirsty or tired and need to sleep. But you can actually take this on many levels beyond that very basic, rudimentary awareness of the body, and really to tune into what it wants, when it wants it, and have that down to a fine art so that you can respond and operate with your body in a very good relationship with it, so that your physical experience of life is much more comfortable. It's probably going to help you be leaner, because you're going to get out of your mind and into your body with regard to your eating choices and your movement, exercise choices, and various things like that. So that's really going to help a lot to develop your practice of listening to the body. That's the key primary life skill for body and health. The primary life skill for relationships is integrating boundaries. So it's important to learn and develop the practice of saying no when you mean no, if somebody gives you an invitation or request or something, and saying yes when you mean yes. So a lot of people will say yes when they mean no. So they've had that capacity to be true to themselves eroded by their upbringing, by other people and expectations upon them. And just somehow the sense that they're not allowed to choose for themselves has got into their thinking, and then that manifests in their relationships. So they're doing things they don't want to be doing because they're afraid to say no to people. So we can undo that. It's just a false conditioning that's happened, and by using our awareness, remember the primary life skill of holding presence, we can recognize that that's happening in relationships, and we can learn to say no when we mean no. And also we can learn to say yes when we mean yes. That's just as important, that we let the fun in and the good things that we want to be experiencing as well. So people can also learn to say no when they mean yes. That's another way that people get shut down. So it's not so much about boundaries in that instance, but it's about barriers, because perhaps if we have a fear of connecting or nerves around connecting, anything like that, we might not be allowing ourselves the full possibility of what we can achieve with regard to our relationships. And of course, it's important as well that we integrate boundaries. It's not just about our yeses and our nos. We also want to be respecting other people's nos when they say them, not trying to cajole them into doing what we want to do, but actually honouring and respecting their nos and giving them room to be how they want to be. And then integrating with them where you have a yes and they have a yes. That's where you're going to find harmony in relationships. It's not found anywhere else. And frankly, if you don't respect people's no's, then you want for them something other than what they want for themselves, then you inadvertently make yourself their enemy. And of course, there's no way you're going to have harmonious relationships under those circumstances. And finally, the primary life skill for prosperity in the wider sense is adding value or contributing value, because that can include all manner of things, the way that you can contribute value to society. What are you doing that is helping other people to have greater quality of life and value in their lives? A lot of people look at the prosperity and the money thing, and they're always trying to work out how they can get or receive money coming in. Well, okay, that's fine, but the first thing is, what are you going to give in response, in return for that? You have to be giving or providing something in order for there to be a reason for that money and prosperity to be coming into you. So the main way you do that is you recognize what your talents and potentials and interests are, and engage those as fully as possible in your creative abilities, and make sure that you're producing or supplying quality products or experiences for other people according to what your talents are. And then you're going to be then you've got some basis for or reason for money to come into you and to be able to receive wealth and prosperity. There's a kicker to that though. What you also need to bear in mind is that you want to be, as they say, you don't get in life what's fair, you get what you negotiate. So you could be giving to people all the time, but if you haven't negotiated what you're going to get in return, then that might be why you've got a block or issue with prosperity that you need to unblock, so that you can turn what you produce into something that comes back into you. So that's the primary life skill for prosperity. So now let's look specifically at how you can design sustainable New Year's resolutions. And the first thing I want to talk about is how there's a parallel There's a kind of pump up effect that you get with New Year's resolutions. You get the pump up effect at the start, and then it kind of dies down a bit, and then within a few days it's gone completely. There's a parallel there with personal development seminars. I run these myself, and whether it's me or anyone else, those people who know what they're doing don't necessarily want their audiences to leave pumped up and have that be the primary driver for their success over the coming months and years. Because it's an altered state, it's an unusual state of consciousness and of being. So if you look at audiences of a seminar and they're kind of hyper at the end of a weekend, and then they get the train or whatever transport home, it's died down a bit, but there's still a lot of that hype, that pump up energy is there, and then they get home, there's still a bit of it there. The next day is probably not so much there, they've still got a bit of a kind of positive hangover of that energy, but by the middle of the week, probably it's all died down and is no use to anyone because it's not there anymore. So what we want to be doing as seminar hosts is to encouraging people to start calmly and then build up from a different space, a state of a permanent state of being grounded and calm rather than in that pump up thing. And that's exactly what happens with New Year's resolutions. People get to the first day of the year, and because it is the first day of the year, they have that sense of drive and motivation and using that energy to start maybe going down the gym. If you look at the gymnasiums, they're all packed with people in January, and by February, usually it's back to normal. The kind of average number of people that are in there year round are going to be there, and all the people who are just turning up in January have run out of energy and motivation. It's because they're coming from the wrong place. They're using a drive and a consciousness that's from that pump up state. And so once you understand that that's what's happening, you can decline that energy and recognize that you want to come at it from a different place. So it might be fine if you don't do anything on the 1st of January, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. You might take a week or 10 days to get into something. But if it's more grounded and sustainable, then it's much more likely that you're going to still be doing it in 6 months' time. And what we're talking about there is states of consciousness. Now, states of consciousness are exclusive. What does that mean? Well, you can't be drunk and sober at the same time. You can't be awake and asleep at the same time. So we're not looking for that pump up, we're looking for that calm state of consciousness, because that's the one that we're going to be living in all year round. So that's the one that we need to be in, that's where we need to be when if we're going to achieve our success in sustaining our resolutions. The second principle I'd invite you to understand is what I call the elastic band principle, which is again what happens with this force. So it's kind of like you have an elastic band and you force yourself to do a certain kind of behavior. Let's say you're trying to eat less or exercise more or trying to work harder in your career. You do it through force, but of course sooner or later that whole thing snaps back and you eventually don't get anywhere. Becomes a temporary distraction. You haven't achieved anything. So of course what we're looking for is the opposite of the elastic band thing, where we're not going through force and we need to integrate as we go. So if you get to points where you're not doing things naturally, they're not coming from your deeper motivation and desire to do things, that's the point at which you have to decide not to try and force it through so that you do keep doing the behavior, but actually listen to what's going on so that you can integrate that other part of you. Because what's happened is you've broken up into two parts of yourself. There's one part that's trying to force through a behavior, and there's another part that's resistant to that. So you don't want to be at war or odds with yourself. That's no way to achieve willpower. You need to have an integrated will by listening to that part of you which you think is frustrating you and getting in the way of you achieving what you want to achieve. Another principle I'd like to invite you to consider is that being true to yourself is something that it's impossible to quit. So you might have days or moments when you do things that aren't true to yourself, and just by mistake or human error or by conditioning, but you'll always have that drive to be true to yourself. That's always going to be a natural thing that's there. You know, even when people say, oh, you know, I can't be bothered with success or I can't be bothered with resolutions, even that is an act of them being true to themselves. So that's one that can't go away. The way you make use of that is that you recognize where you're designing and choosing resolutions and ways of operating that are at odds with that. So let's take something like listening to the body. That's the primary life skill for body and health. So if you choose a New Year's resolution that's something to do with how you eat or something to do with how you exercise, and you just have these fixed ideas of what the behavior is going to be, well, what happens when that comes into conflict with your listening to the body and the signals that the body is giving you and what it wants? You've got two possibilities. You're either going to fail in your resolution, that's either going to come to an end, or you're going to be going against the needs and wisdom of your own body. So neither of those outcomes are desirable. So what we can do, and the same is true, by the way, where you have conflicts, where you have a behavior about how you're going to behave in relationships or in your career. If once they're at odds with being true to yourself, then you've got the same kind of problem. So what you can do is choose resolutions that are in line with you being true to yourself. And each of those 4 primary skills that I mentioned earlier, they're all subsets of being true to yourself. And they're actually what we call the kissing consciousness motto, which is hold presence, listen to your body, integrate boundaries, and contribute value. So if you can choose goals that are more relaxed about what you're doing and in line with those 4, ultimately in line with being true to yourself, then you're going to find that your approach is going to be something that you'll still be doing in June, still be doing in November, because even though you might have to tweak it as you go or make adjustments in your approach to what you're doing, the overall principle is the same. You're looking to be true to yourself with regard to your mind, your confidence, and your happiness. You're looking to be true to yourself with regard to your body and your health. You're looking to be true to yourself with regard to your relationships and your friendships. And you're looking to be true to yourself with regard to your prosperity, your finances. So that's the way you can avoid designing something that's going to be flawed from the start to actually designing something that's coming from a deeper place of wisdom and is going to be something that you will find is sustainable, not just throughout the year, but throughout your life. And so there you have it. It's a 10-day motto that you can take with you. And in any moment when you get into a spot of bother or some kind of feeling that you're not feeling confident, you can always refer back to that. Which situation am I in? Mind, body, relationships, or prosperity? What is it that I'm not doing? So hold presence, listen to the body, listen to your body, integrate boundaries, and contribute value. So in any kind of situation where you're not feeling confident, you can always refer back to one of those. Please do share any reports or feedback if you apply any of that in your life, and I'd love to hear if you get results, or however it turns out for you. I'd love to hear how you get on with whatever it is you're trying to achieve. And to help you with that, I've got something for you, which is my free guide, the top 10 life skills for an amazing life. And you can get that free with my compliments. That's going to help you identify, in addition to the 4 primary life skills that we've talked about today, each one of those has what I call a kicker life skill. So you have a primary life skill and a secondary life skill that goes with that. So for example, the primary life skill for the body and health is listening to the body. The secondary life skill for that is to differentiate the difference between the needs of the mind and the needs of the body, so that you can liberate your body from the tyrant mind. So that's the kicker for the body. So there's also a secondary life skill for the mind, for relationships, and for prosperity. And there's 2 more that are general across all of those areas. So you have 10 life skills, top 10 life skills for an amazing life. You can get that for free, as I say, at kissingconsciousness.com/top10. If you'd like one-to-one support with me, coaching support is available. You can find out more about that at kissingconsciousness.com/coaching, and perhaps we can arrange to have a free consultation discussion online about that. If what I've shared today has helped you, please subscribe, and I'll be happy to help you again. And till next time, take care.